What's going on, Jeromes? It's a beautiful Tuesday, and it's time for 5 good Vikings questions. Thank you very much for submitting. Usually we put out a call for questions once a week on the community tab, so go check that out. First one's from Traveler, OG Jerome. Quarterback watch. Can you walk through the teams likely looking for a quarterback this year, either through free agency or draft? Curious who we'd be bidding against in the draft. So we sorted this out by teams think probably could be in the quarterback market, ranked by draft pick or where their first draft selection is, as well as their current cap situation. So the Bears, well, I don't think the Bears really cross over with what the Vikings could look for. They're not going to sign Kirk Cousins, although that would be hilarious. And if they take a quarterback, it's going to be probably Caleb Williams at 1. Although, could it be a funky spot where, no, it's probably not going to happen. They got cap space. Washington at 2. So it would be hilarious if they bring Kirk Cousins back to Washington. They do have the cap space, but I feel like they're the team that if Chicago does not take Caleb Williams, I think that they're going to trade up from 2 to get to 1 and get their guy. I think that's what's going to happen. New England at 3. I think that's more. Well, New England has the cap space, and we made the case before that Kirk Cousins to the Patriots would make some sense if they want stability. And if, say, Caleb Williams and Drake May go 1-2, and maybe they're not in the Jaden Daniels business, maybe they go Marvin Harrison or Neighbors at 3, and they sign Kirk. Well, they'd have to sign Kirk before, but you know what I mean. Giants at 6. Daniel Jones is ass, thank you, but they may ride it out for one more season. They may be interested in quarterback at the top of the second round, which is ahead of the Vikings second round pick at 42. So that's something to watch for. Falcons, I mean, Kirk Cousins and the Falcons have been tied since forever. Plus, they have the number 8 overall pick. Although I feel like there's going to be a quarterback no man's land, probably between the top 3, where I believe Williams, May, Daniels go win, play, show. And then the second wave of Penix, McCarthy, Nix, maybe even Spencer Rattler. Yeah. Broncos got some work to do cap-wise, but they're jettisoning Russell Wilson. They do have the number 12 overall pick, which is behind the Vikings at 11. The Raiders, speculation that the Raiders would have traded up to 1 if they had brought in Cliff Kingsbury, but he goes to Washington. So, again, adding more speculation there. But they have the cap space. Could it be a spot for Kirk Cousins? I don't know. But they did hire Luke Getsy, former Bears OC. So Caleb Williams to the Bears, although Getsy did his best to ruin Caleb Williams or Justin Fields. So I don't understand that one. The Saints are in a rough cap situation. The Seahawks, new regime is Geno, their guy, TBD. The Rams, I think the Rams sneakily could be a spot for one of the young quarterbacks, whether it be at 19 or maybe they maneuver in the back end of the first round or at the top of the second round. Steelers got some cap work to do, but they have number 20 overall. That could be a free agent landing spot for Kirkua. And then the Buccaneers, depending on what happens with Baker Mayfield, I actually think they run it back with Baker, but that could also be a spot where they could have some quarterback demand as well. So basically, I feel like draft-wise, I feel like the Vikings are ahead. If they wanted to stick and pick at 11 and just take a quarterback, I feel like they're ahead of everyone else in terms of the second wave. But second round, I don't think that the second wave would actually get to them at 42. So they'd have some work to do to maneuver, move up the board in the second round. Next up, Taylor Wildenberg. Do you think the Vikings defense will be good if we let Hunter walk? Well, that depends what you replace him with. So if you let Danielle Hunter walk, or he signs somewhere else for big time money, it is what it is. DJ Wanham, do you have him back off the torn quad? I mean, DJ performed well in basically in the spot of Marcus Davenport, so I'd be fine with that. Davenport ain't coming back. Patrick Jones second. In a contract year, I do like PJ too. Andre Carter the second in year 2 So Carter was always going to be a long-term project, and that could be one of the reasons why he fell in the draft beyond just sort of a whatever 2022 season after a huge 2021 season. But, I mean, Carter's going to take time to grow into his NFL body versus his Army cadet body. But I think that he could contribute very nicely in year 2. But, the Vikings, if the Vikings add in free agency along the defensive line and a corner, which I think should and could be the plan. Maybe some Winfield Jr. sprinkled in there. And then I think that they should definitely be hammering the draft for edge rushers. You look at guys like at 11, Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or Leatu Latu, or in the second round, guys like Chop Robinson going down that route. So I think that it would sting, but also challenging Flores to reconfigure his defense, and I think that the Vikings could potentially be fine, especially if they do suture up that defensive line, because I'm a front to the back type person when it comes to thinking about defense, whereas like, hey, if you control the line of scrimmage, if you're able to get a consistent pass rush, especially on the interior with only 4, makes everything else easier on the back end. So the Vikings have to address that first and foremost. And even if Danielle was back and they didn't address the defensive line, it could still be a bit of a slog. Next up, showdown. Do you think teams could look at Jaden Daniels as similar to Trey Lance and pass on him? Nah, I don't see that. I mean, the main concerns about Jaden Daniels are his frame. Will he be able to hold up in the NFL? I actually think that Jaden Daniels is more akin to RG3. Just in terms of running ability, in terms of frame questions, although Daniels is 6'4". I mean, he's listed as 210. That doesn't look like 210, man. But the things about Trey Lance is that there's a myriad of questions about Trey Lance. Number one, he really only had 1 year of starting experience at NDSU. Number two, caliber of competition. Number three, the offense that he played in with the Bison is not really translatable to the NFL. So you're betting on traits, and it was a big-time gamble by the 49ers, who gave up 3 first-round picks to go get him. But they turned out fine because they're competent at drafting in the middle and late parts of the draft. I mean, they got Fred Warner in the 3rd round. They got Drake Greenlaw in the 5th round. They got Kittle in the 5th round. Come on, man. And Jaden Daniels. I mean, Daniels won the Heisman. Also, he played in the SEC, not only the SEC, but the SEC West, so the pinnacle of college football. And he was able to put up huge numbers. He was able to win the Heisman. He was able to show off the arm as well as the legs. I think that he does have good pocket awareness. I think he throws with anticipation. And also, I think he's got a strong arm, too. And we've talked about before, he does have 1 year of huge production, but he basically has 4.5 seasons of starting experience. He had 2.5 at Arizona State, half because of the Rona season, and 2 years at LSU. So, I mean, he's a completely different prospect than Trey Lance. But there are certainly questions there, and I understand why Daniels, who's also a little bit older of a prospect, he's going to be 24 in December, is a few more question marks than a guy like Drake May or Caleb Williams. Next up, follow your light. What attributes do you personally look for in a quarterback in the draft? Are you a pocket kind of guy or a mobile one? Always grateful for the content, Eddie. Well, I don't like the whole pocket versus mobile debate. It was wait until the Vikings get a mobile quarterback. It basically boils down to how comfortable are they in the pocket. And not all mobile quarterbacks are good in the pocket. Not all pocket quarterbacks are complete liabilities. Right. So I think it's more about pocket feel. And you look at Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady will never be confused with RG3 or Lamar Jackson or Steve Young in terms of mobility. But what he was always good at was sliding around in the pocket, staying in the pocket, by the way, and sliding around, just having a half step forward, half step back, understanding where the rush is coming from, and just buying that extra fraction of a second to be able to throw downfield. That greatly helps out the offensive line. Now, mobile quarterbacks, yes, that can certainly help, but I feel like it's a spot where sometimes that works against offensive lines, where it's like, hey, your quarterback can run, but if he takes off, Charlie Skedaddle at the first sign of pressure, and you don't necessarily know where he's going, that can be a detriment to the offensive line. But the main attribute I look for in a draftable quarterback is accuracy, right? And that's something that Kevin O'Connell talks about too, where everyone has a big time boner over arm strength, and arm strength is arm strength is arm strength, yes. And for me, you have to meet a minimum threshold. So can you get the ball out of your hands downfield to the 3rd level? Can you get it out of your hands outside the numbers? If you check that box, great. And anything else on top of that is gravy. And hey, if you're Cutler or Jeff George, that's fantastic. But if you can't throw with accuracy or touch, I mean, then we're going to have questions. Now with Penix, Penix can throw with accuracy, but can he throw a touch? That's the main question. It's like, because all he does is throw gas, man. But like, he is Mariano Rivera, although Mo had a good curve. Doesn't matter. But yeah, also throwing with anticipation. And there's a lot of college quarterbacks who do just fine, where see it, you throw it, where you wait to see that the receiver is open, then you throw it. And you can get by with that in college. But in the NFL, I mean, guys who are open won't be open in 0.5 seconds, right? And can a guy throw a receiver open? Also, ball placement. Do they put it where the receiver has to slow down, or the receiver has to change direction, or within the framework of the play? Also goes into understanding the playbook and what the play is trying to accomplish. Can you hit a receiver in stride? Can you put the ball in a spot where the receiver can make the play afterwards? That also goes into it too. The thing I hate the most is that if you see a quarterback who makes a throw and his receivers are constantly on the ground, whether they have to basically break off the route and catch the ball, or they automatically get hit, it's usually a red flag. And also, talk about minimum arm strength, but also competitiveness in big games. And it doesn't matter if it's the national title game. It doesn't matter if you're playing a rival, Tennessee Tech, if it's a small school guy. How does the dude get up for big time games? Is he crushed after a big time loss? And of course, everything is revisionist history, but it goes back to Tom friggin' Brady, right? And Brady was like 13th string quarterback when he got to Michigan, and then he had to compete and behind Brian Gracie, and then all of a sudden Drew Henson came in. I mean, Drew Henson, people forget, Drew Henson was the golden child of Michigan, right? And third baseman for the Yankees, and a lot of pressure was on Lloyd Carr to play him for the Wolverines, but Tom Brady kept grinding. He kept being gritty, and usually what would happen, Henson would start the game, and then all of a sudden they would get behind, and then Brady comes in, they end up winning. And the thing that stood out, of course, all this revisionist history, but Michigan played Alabama in the Orange Bowl, and Tom Brady put on a gritty-ass performance where he just refused to lose, and that's big for me. And also, one of the reasons I love Drake May so much is, well, the way that he played in the Duke game, the double overtime game. Also, so there was a game middle of the season, UNC, I believe, was playing Miami. Now, I think UNC ended up winning by 10 points, but it was pretty close throughout. And there was a big-time high-leverage spot where I think it was 3rd and 20. I think that they were at the Miami 33, 34, somewhere in there. And, 3rd and forever. And, you could settle, take the check down. You're going to be in field goal range, and you could do that. But Drake May, he stood in the pocket. He had time, but he stood in the pocket, and he delivered an absolute piss missile in the middle of the field to Tez Walker, and it went in for an end zone on like a deep square in. And that showed me a lot, where you could take the safe route. And there was stuff underneath, sure. But confidence in that throw, because if you miss on that throw, so 35, 42, 52, so it would have been about been a 50-plus yard field goal. So that might have been out of range, like for a college kicker. But the smart play would have been take what's underneath. Miami, good defense for the Canes, but they're playing at the stick, so everything was underneath. They were going to give you 5-10 yards, but just the huevos. Just to throw that strike and the confidence in it in the middle of the defense, by the way. I mean, that says a lot to me. That's why I love me some Drake May. That's the throw that stands out to me. So that's it. Next up, speaking of Drake May, Sweet G, what is the best and worst case scenario this offseason for at quarterback? Well, so I have my favorites, except I'm not the type of fan or I'm definitely not a draft expert. I'm a fan of the draft, but I'm not someone that said it has to be this person or this team is going to be rotten for the next bajillion years, right? So there's many more qualified people who make a lot more money than me in this business that have opinions on who the next quarterback of the Vikings should be, right? And also, I mean, their jobs are on the line, because if they're wrong, they go home, right? And Andy is here forever, but I think the worst. Let's start with the worst. So we're Vikings fans. We focus on the worst case scenario. I would say Kirk leaves. I would say the Vikings. this is not an aspersion to Baker, but Kirk leaves, and then the Vikings get Baker Mayfield $45 million a year for like 3 years, and that pauses the search for the quarterback of the future. I think that's a bad deal, because I am concerned that Baker's season this year, while he was good, I think that might be more the exception than the rule. So I don't know. I mean, Baker had a lot of really good things going on for him with the Buccaneers. Rachaad White was really stepping up. Mike Evans had himself a great season. As always, Chris Godwin was stepping up. Dave Canlis was his OC. And now, even though, Minnesota's a great spot, is that replicable? Don't know, man. It's here. Or worst case scenario is that the Vikings sign Russell Wilson and they don't draft the quarterback of the future, or Kirk leaves and then they just bring in like a bridge quarterback. They roll with the Passionate or Mullins or Jabroni Brisket, and they don't trade up for a quarterback, and like they sort of miss. Like Penix, Nix, and McCarthy go ahead of them in the second round before they're able to move. So now what? All right, so you're starting Jacoby Brissett and like Spencer Rattler as your quarterback of the future. I don't know. Or they sign Jimmy G. That would be the worst. The best would be best of both worlds. Like if Kirk would come back on a 1-year deal, which I don't think he would, but I think that would be the best case scenario, where the Vikings get their quarterback of the future either by sticking and picking, or by trading up in the back end of the first round, or by trading all the way up into the stratosphere at the top of the draft, and Kirk Cousins on a 1-year deal. I think that's the best of both worlds. And on that, like if Kirk leaves and the Vikings trade him in the top 3 and land a Williams, a May, or Daniels, I think that would also be the best. Yeah, but we'll see. Anyways, that's it. That is Vikings Q&A for this beautiful Tuesday. You know what to do. Skol, production value.